to Swing State Update. My name's Tyler Boyer. I'm here with the illustrious Austin Smith.
Welcome to AmericaFest.
It's AmericaFest.
AmericaFest, day 3.
Day 3. Yeah, we only have a full 24 hours to go here.
Yep.
So, no, we're excited to be here. It's been, a lot of fun. Obviously, people have seen a lot online.
Yeah.
You're probably listening to this sometime over Christmas break here when we're posting this because we're out until January 1st. But we're excited to remind everybody that's listening to Swing State Update for us here is that we're coming back in the new year with a brand new format with live shots here of Swing State Update.
Yep.
And then we'll be doing our regular on Fridays. So Mondays, you'll be able to listen to us live with our whole team at Turning Point Action. And then every Friday is coming to you as we normally are. So, mark your calendars. Check us out Mondays and Fridays. We're going to keep you updated with everything that's happening in Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and, of course, Michigan. So with that, we'll kind of dive right in. We've got the wonderful Mayor Trent Staggs with us, who Turning Point Action's endorsed.
Yeah, we did.
In the U.S. Senate race in Utah. Mayor Staggs, welcome to Swing State Update.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you.
What do you think of AmericaFest so far? This is your first AmericaFest?
Yes, it is. I went to the Turning Point Action convention out in Palm Beach in July.
ACON,
where
yeah.
I got the endorsement on stage, and it was amazing. And I just the energy that's here is unbelievable. And I don't know how you guys keep it up. Like you said, you've got another 24 hours or so to go, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of, it's just a lot of patriotism, that we just inject directly into our veins. And we know you're a patriot because it was thanks to you. Since that time, Mitt Romney has decided he's not going to run anymore, which, this is Swing State Update, so we don't talk a lot about Utah. But the scary part is I actually just saw a graphic, and I'll try to get this edited into our podcast here so people can see it. I just saw a report that was put out that's shown how left Utah has gone over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. And in fact, there's some analysis that shows in the next 7 to 10 years, we could be Colorado.
Wow.
And that's what's very, very concerning to me.
Well, Park City kind of is Colorado already.
So
so
it already is.
Not to knock Park City. I know you're trying to earn votes everywhere.
And Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City.
And Salt Lake City,
Sure.
But I mean, it's a scary thing because we look at this. People kind of laughed at me because a year ago I posted a map, the 270 to win map, and I said, "This is our future in the next 20 years." And our future is that Idaho, Utah, for sure Arizona, Tennessee, Texas are all in trouble.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is for what you said, because you've been fighting this fight in Salt Lake, and people don't realize that it's because of these large metropolitan areas that are going this way instead of this way. I mean, Utah's been so good because it's grown this way like Arizona for so long.
That's right.
And now it's starting to go this way. And what happens from that is you get bluer cities and bluer counties. And when you have a county that's as large as Salt Lake County, the rest of the state can't keep up.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about that, how you envision the battle and why it's so important to win the Senate race, for a conservative when you've been represented by Mitt Romney for so long and so many really bad Republicans.
Oh, man. Yeah, and so that's what I know. This is swing state. We don't typically view Utah as a swing or a pickup, but I've been telling folks this effectively is a pickup. Getting Romney out of there, who votes with Biden 60+% of the time.
That's fair.
It's a huge win.
That is fair. Right now, you kind of have a purple state when it comes to senators. So you have a really great red senator and a really bad blue senator. So.
And Mike Lee has also endorsed you too, right? Mike Lee has also endorsed you?
Mike Lee hasn't officially endorsed, but we hope
Let's speak directly to the camera.
Mike Lee,
if you're
to support Trent Staggs.
I'm going to text you this clip, Mike.
But yes, that's the problem. We have some densification going on. We have a development-led legislature that is really pushing high-density housing. I've seen that as a mayor, right? For the past 10 years in elected office. We've been fighting it for the last 5 years. The state legislature has passed 24 pieces of legislation that have taken away land use authority from municipalities. And when that happens, you're seeing more and more high-density housing, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're turning Salt Lake County more and more blue, and other cities are going to follow if this continues. So it's really important that we stop that and that we actually get true conservatives in office that are going to allow us to grow in the way that we need to so that we don't become that blue state.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So Salt Lake, figuring out the solutions for Salt Lake starts with good leadership from the top. So, I mean, I'm going to tell you this is, you know, you don't have to agree with it, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but Governor Cox has not been the idyllic conservative as a governor.
I can agree with that.
And so, you know, it's helpful to have the Mike Lees that are there to attract more conservatives to your state. I don't think it helps attract conservative policies to your state when you have wishy-washy senators, wishy-washy governors, wishy-washy statewide elected officials. I think that's why it's so important that you get elected. So.
That's a great point. I think it's spot on. We need to have it starts at the top, right? If we can have that federal delegation that is moved further to the right, then I think it's going to drag the entirety of the elected officials statewide more to the right, and we're going to have a bench. Because right now, that's a problem too. We've talked about this, Tyler, where we don't have a great conservative bench in the state of Utah, and we need to draw to that. And that, you know, that can come as a result of great, true conservative, America First, constitutional conservatives in office.
Yeah, I think what's important too is that out west, you know, the battleground state is Arizona, and this trend we saw, it's also in the Midwest and also in the Southeast. Arizona, 10, 15 years ago, was not a battleground state. We talk on this show all the time, the injection of money the left has spent in Arizona. Utah is on the next radar map to go get some of those electoral votes. And I kind of want to get your take. You know, you've been a mayor, you've been involved locally from Utah. You understand the political landscape of the place. Let's fast forward. So 2024 probably will go for Donald Trump for president. 2028, that may be a different story. What do you think?
Yeah, it could be definitely by 4 years from there. I think we're probably seeing a much more purple dynamic. Just the demographics that we're seeing. We're seeing not only the densification, but also more and more in-net migration. It used to be that the majority of the population growth in the state came from organic or natural growth, childbirths, from native Utahns. But now we're seeing more and more people from California, other states that are unfortunately not leaving their political ideology in the state in which they came from. So we could very much be seeing that. I hope it doesn't happen. There's some things I think policymakers can absolutely do and lead on that will stop that. But and I think the illegal immigration, this is something too that we don't talk a whole lot about, but we have hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants in the state of Utah. Yeah, and it's definitely changing the way the state is ideologically.
Oh, absolutely. And I think over time, like especially a state like Arizona, we talk about our map all the time. Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, those are the three states. You and I were just talking earlier about our Chase the Vote initiative. And Utah, you obviously have a smaller population than Arizona, but you're right across the border. And so once we get done with the primary in your state, we're going to encourage Trent Staggs and some people to come down and chase ballots in Arizona for a week, right, Tyler?
Well, let me ask you this question, Trent. So let's talk about your opposition, because when you talk about ballot chasing and winnable, Utah's going to be won this election cycle by a Republican, not really concerned in a presidential. But, you just brought up the fact that in a primary, this comes down to making sure the right Republican gets elected, and so identifying the right, and having a message that's out there. I don't know if you feel comfortable. Let's talk a little bit about your opponents that are in the race. Yeah. Let's go through that real quick and kind of explain to the audience, because even though you may not live in Utah, this similar circumstance, I think, is playing out in a lot of places.
It is.
Where you have a good America First conservative, plays by the game, it respects the grassroots, is hanging out with people, is working hard, like Trent. But then you have opponents that get in your race that maybe don't. So who are those guys in Utah?
They're the establishment. And that's what we have. Like you said, we've got in me somebody who is somebody who's demonstrated the resolve and the backbone to actually stand up, push back against the establishment. That's the biggest issue we have today. Yep. We need more fighters in the U.S. Senate. We need people that are going to stand up and say no, because the establishment isn't working. The $34 trillion in debt, the regulatory state run amok, federal agencies weaponized against their citizenry. We need people that are going to get up there and say no, not people that are part of the establishment already or want to ingratiate themselves into that culture, and that's what I have in the opponents. One gentleman who was the Speaker of our House, the state of Utah for some years, he just stepped down the other month. He's running for this race. He embodies, I think, epitomizes the establishment in the state of Utah. And how can you go back and fight the DC swamp if that is your background, that's what you've done? He is supported by a bunch of anti-Trump Mitt Romney donors. Some of the same campaign apparatus that helped out Mitt Romney are now part of his campaign.
So that's Wilson.
That is Wilson.
So the guy that was, and by the way, I want to point to something that's really important, because we had this in Arizona, we kind of still do. I won't put Austin on the spot. We have this problem in Wisconsin. We saw what happened in Texas. We have this epidemic across America in the Republican Party of really waffly speakers of the House.
In red states for some reason.
In red states, and some of these deep red states. Yeah. So we saw what happened in Texas, where they tried to take out Ken Paxton, right? Yeah. And that started with the Speaker of the House in Texas.
Yeah.
Arizona, we had to knock out Rusty Bowers, who's also LDS, just long time, acted like he was a conservative for many years. He was the worst, maybe one of the worst speakers that we've had in a long time. You have in Wisconsin, you have Robin Voss, who they have a super majority in Wisconsin right now. Terrible. And then you look at a guy like Brad Wilson, and again, on the face value, what you see is this, and this we kind of went through this in Arizona. Face value, you go, oh, he's a nice guy, like nice enough, doesn't get embroiled. But when you actually drill down to his record, you start seeing like the guy really did not a whole lot as Speaker.
No, in fact, anything, he took housing affordability in Utah from the 6th most affordable when he started to dead last.
Wow.
We're now 51st behind DC.
So he basically turned you into California.
He went from 2017 when he was in leadership, the budget was $16 billion. We're now $30 billion. He's doubled the budget size. He voted to increase the sales tax on food, hundreds of millions of dollars more in sales taxes, raise the property tax, the state levy for education.
Very greedy.
We can go on and on with
Very
fees.
greedy.
So he is not a conservative. He's demonstrated as much. Don't even get me started on COVID. I mean, they did nothing about mask mandates until mid-21.
Utah should have been one of the freest states.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They had a chance to do that, and they
just like turn their nose to it. And that was guys like Brad. And
Exactly.
This is the point that I've put out on the world, and some of his consultants have been really nasty online. This is Mitt Romney's pick. So a lot of the Romney guys, they're being quiet. So this same thing happened in Arizona, by the way. So this very same thing happened in Arizona, where they were trying to be coy. So back in the McCain days and Jeff Flake days, but Doug Ducey for sure, what they'll do is they won't endorse somebody intentionally, knowing that it's going to expose them, right? That it's going to, and then what will end up happening last minute when it's like they think the polling shows it makes a difference, and he may or may not endorse. But they know how bad Romney is with the base. So they're not going to come. If you think that Romney's going to come out and like straight up endorse somebody,
correct,
he's not going to do that, right? Like, and this is, think about your state. Just so you know, this is the games that they play without you realizing it. So even though Romney stood down, everyone's clapping. They're going, yeah, this is great. You might end up with Romney 2.0.
A younger version who could be there longer.
If you elect the wrong guy.
Exactly. Next 30 years.
Next 30 years and they're out. But so it sounds like that opponent, that Speaker of the House, it's just a revolving door with lobbyists in his office. That culture transfers over to Washington, D.C. You've got to be polar opposite of that for the grassroots in your state. I mean, you've probably been traveling around working hard, getting to know these people, earning the trust of the conservative base. Day one, Washington, D.C., 2025, what does Senator Trent Staggs do?
Oh, boy. And we have been working hard, 50-plus town halls. We've done it. We're all over the state. And so, I mean, day one, what I've been telling folks is we've got to get back there. We need new leadership in the Senate.
Correct.
Okay, absolutely. Yep. No more Mitch McConnell. We need somebody who is going to actually represent Americans and be able to push forth an America First agenda with President Trump. So with President Trump there in office, we need to get a hold of our budget. We have to have budgetary process again.
Can I just stop you for right there? I mean, we've been talking about this, but guys, it's likely that Trump's going to be our nominee, right? So we've got to put up candidates that are going to run complementary to our presidential candidate. it does not help us in the state of Utah to have somebody that hates
Anti-Trump.
running
Funded by anti-Trump donors.
Right.
and funded by anti-Trump donors. And look, I get it. I totally understand it. Utah has been one of those like least sure about Trump places, but I think we've seen, especially in the LDS community and the evangelical community, this turn, right? Which is that people that weren't sure about Trump saw what he did in 4 years, and they're like, you know what? I'm actually don't believe anything that comes out of the mouth of Mitt Romney and Jeff Flake anymore.
Yeah.
And some other Mormons. And you know, there's great members of the LDS faith, like like Senator Lee, who got on the train and realized, like, I was wrong. Because remember, Mike Lee was an anti-Trump guy. He came out, like, said initially.
I saw him this summer, Mike Lee, at the YR convention. He was singing Donald Trump's praises.
No, he turned
it was like from 4 years ago, totally different.
Look, I admit, I love people who are senators, U.S. senators, that say I was wrong, and I'm on the train. And he did. And by 2020, he's out campaigning and doing rallies. He came down to Phoenix and did rallies. And so, I really appreciate that. I think it's so important for people to know and understand that Mayor Trent Staggs is your only complimentary candidate to Donald Trump.
I'm the only one who's endorsed President Trump. I did so in the Washington Times.
I saw that
op-ed in August. Straight away within endorsing, I've always supported President Trump. I've been endorsed by Carrie Lake, by Rick Grinnell, by Kash Patel. They've all come out to Utah and done events. And
by Turning Point Action, by Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk. We mentioned that right out of the gate. We got that one first.
That
was the very first one. Yeah. The very first one. That's what started it. But and I think scared Mitt out of the race. I'll give you that.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
But that's very important. I think you make great.
Let's talk about the second guy getting into your race.
Oh yeah.
Because this is, we'll put up his, we'll put up on the.
We'll get some graphics up.
We'll put up the graphic here for his scorecard on the Turning Point Action scorecard. So Congressman John Curtis is one of the worst congressmen that we have in the West that's a Republican. And I'm not saying that because I want to say that, but he has a score this session on the Turning Point Action scorecard of 82.64. That puts him nearly in the purple.
Wow.
So he's literally voted against some really important, some key things against the Turning Point Action position, including there's many things. We can go through all these. Most recently, the Continuing Appropriation and Other Extensions Act. Just recently, he didn't vote on, Hamas International Financing Prevention Act. So there was a bill that was out there about stopping Hamas. He just didn't vote. He didn't show up to vote. We're talking.
He supported the January 6th committee. He supported the Trump impeachment inquiry.
Oh, that's right. He was one of the original.
He didn't vote for the impeachment, but he said in our local media that he vacillated. He was very. It was a hard decision for him to make on impeachment.
So he was. I think he voted for the CR. I think he voted for the Ukraine appropriation. So, you're talking about somebody here that is literally one of our worst representatives. If the other guy might be friendly with Mitt Romney, this guy literally is the embodiment of the House Mitt Romney.
I think so. Yeah, and climate change seems to be the most important topic he wants to talk about.
Right.
He wants to be the leader on climate change, and so this is somebody who has ingratiated himself in the establishment class in Washington, D.C. He'll continue to do that. And he's proven it. He's done it for the last 6-7 years that he's been in Congress. And we know we'll get more of the same. This would be a Mitt Romney 2.0. It would be a continuation of that type of establishment first, America last policy that will just continue us off the brink, off the edge. And we can't have that.
Yeah, and I'm looking here. I'm just looking at... I'm looking at all these bills. His worst score out of all of our stuff that we have here is big tech and free speech. And like today, and this has been something I think that has been really near and dear to the heart of Senator Lee is on that thing. He's just, we've got to have somebody that just knows what they're doing in there, and having a U.S. Senator, again, that's going to offset Mike Lee is stupid to me. Right now, we have the opportunity to get in a stalwart conservative, and that is you.
Utah has it, and so even Kentucky, between Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. We want the Rand Pauls and the Trent Staggs and the Mike Lees from red states. We do not want any more Mitch McConnells and Mitt Romneys from these states that Republicans dominate in. It makes absolutely zero sense when you vote against the party platform or conservative values. Why would we continue sending you back there? And so we got to get Trent Staggs.
And the thing I'm most excited about, I got to tell you, is the fact that we have other Turning Point Action endorsed, America First conservatives like Carrie Lake, to be able to get back there and work with her and with the folks that are there that are true constitutional conservatives, America First senators like Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Rick Scott, Ron Johnson. You go down the list, J.D. Vance, Eric Schmidt. I mean,
Josh Hawley.
Josh Hawley, yes. There's a good dozen or so core, and that's enough. That's enough to create critical mass where we can get new Senate leadership, we can go through, work with President Trump on his Agenda 47, and get us back to prosperity. I'm excited about it.
So let's talk about here, and then we'll let you go because I know you're busy and you got to get to more things here. And I know Tucker's coming up here, and we're hoping that we can get you with Tucker while you're here. Talk to us a little bit about what your hopes are for the next number of months, what the conservatives outside of Utah and inside of Utah, but outside of Utah as well, can do to support you, where they can go, and kind of just what your next number of months look like as we go through 1 year out from the elections here.
Well, in Utah, as you guys were alluding to, it's really whoever wins the Republican primary. There's no competitive general race. So that primary, the next 6 months are going to determine who is the next U.S. Senator. Right. It's very important. March 5th is the caucus night. April 27th is our state convention. June 25th will be the primary. And so we've got about 6 months to go. And we're going to just keep going full speed ahead, build the coalition that we've built.
So Utah used to have this. So again, this is just kind of interesting. Some states have this, and most people don't realize this, but some states have this where a caucus system where once upon a time in Utah, if you won the caucus amongst the party, which is like the central committee, the precinct leaders, all that, then you won the nomination.
Yeah, 60%.
That's how it used to work. That's how Mike Lee got elected, effectively, right? He won the caucus, and he was the nominee for the Republican Party, and that's how he got in. Yeah, but they got rid of that.
They did. They passed in 2014 what I call the Rhino Protection Act, and they allow somebody to go gather signatures. So irrespective of the outcome of the convention in April,
wow.
Whereas you used to get 60% of the delegates, the 4,000 delegates, you were automatically that nominee. It doesn't happen that way anymore. You have to be.
So now you have a full election that you have to compete with.
You'll be forced into a balloted primary where every registered Republican will get a ballot June 25th, and that's where we need the help to be able to go up on TV against these folks. Yeah. We know we'll dominate it.
But the caucus helps because if you're involved with the caucus in Utah, and you should be if you're listening and you're from Utah, and we'll help distribute this to our Utahns that are conservative. You want to participate, get involved now. What can they do to get involved so they can be part of the caucus?
They have to go March 5th to their neighborhood precinct, run to be a state delegate, be voted on by their neighborhood caucus to become one of those 4,000 delegates, and then show up to convention April 27th, downtown Salt Lake City at the Salt Palace, which is where it's going to be held, and vote for me. We want to have a strong showing, earn that 60% plus. Mike Lee won 70% of the delegates last year, right?
Yep.
And so we want to have a similar showing, show that strength, and then go right in to the primary. And if folks want to help, they can do that, run to be a delegate if you're in Utah. Even if you're not in Utah, those folks want to go to TrentStaggs.com, STAGGS, donate. I've been so humbled by the fact that we've now received donations from people across all 50 states. It's been amazing, and really appreciate all the support.
Well, God bless you, Mayor Staggs. We're grateful for you running. And again, I can't say this enough, because in so many states and in Utah for a long time, there just sometimes haven't been good candidates that were willing to run. And Utah has one in you. And
thank you.
I know it's a huge blessing to the conservative movement, to the party, to have somebody stepping up and being and emulating at least what Mike Lee has done. Giving Mike Lee a run for his money, hopefully, when you get there. But, being a great conservative, which is what we need out of deep red states like Utah. So good luck to you. Again, if you go to TrentStaggs.com, you can follow him, get involved with the caucus, support his campaign outside of Utah. Obviously, Turning Point Action is going to be supporting, so you can always go to TPAction.com and support our rank of candidates there. and Mayor Staggs is one of them. God bless you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Welcome everybody. Another special segment of Swing State Update. I am your co-host, Austin Smith, with the great, smart political strategist, Tyler Boyer.
Happy to be here, Austin. And, we've been talking so much here at AmericaFest about all the things happening, and we've been bouncing back and forth, and we've even gone into some of the other states that are all over the country. But here on Swing State Update, we talk almost exclusively every week and then distribute this out to all of our activists, mostly around Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia. And I always feel like we're never talking about Georgia enough. And so I'm really happy that we have the National Committeeman from Georgia with us here today, Jason Thompson. Thank you so much.
Applause, I believe that
you hear that? Yeah, that's all
Welcome.
you.
Welcome, Jason.
It's his name is now Jason Bannon. So that actually plays well in certain districts in Georgia. So, no, we're excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And we want to talk Georgia, and obviously you being the National Committeeman, you're traveling around the state, you're talking to all the grassroots. You and I really became really close friends over the course of this last year when we were listening to the grassroots. And I'm over in Arizona, arguably one of the most important states. I'm the National Committeeman. You're the National Committeeman on the RNC, so you're representing the grassroots to the RNC of Georgia. And we're going, nobody at the RNC is talking about what we need in our states. We got to have new leadership. We got to look for something new here, and we got to change the game. And obviously, I think a lot of people were really depressed when we saw not a whole lot of changes have happened this last year. So, what are you hearing on the ground in Georgia, and what are you telling people as you travel around the state?
Well, first of all, when it comes to leadership, anywhere I go, and Georgia's a very diverse state, not only ethnically, but as far as the topography. I mean, it's a beautiful state all over the place. Whether it's North Georgia, South Georgia, Metro Atlanta, the first thing people say when I go to a county party is, "What do you want new leadership? What are you going to do?"
Yeah.
So that almost always.
That sucks.
So,
it sucks for us.
Yeah. And so in the meantime, one of the things I've been doing is, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. That's what the RNC keeps doing, and I can see it coming again. Yep. All right, it's always the same model, right?
Yep.
And I addressed this, our last election integrity committee, I think you might have been sitting in on that, where I said, what we don't want, because I was a district chairman, I've always been a grassroots person, we don't want some young person coming down saying, I'm the election integrity person, I'm here to take over. It's like someone from the government saying that, right?
Totally.
and we do this over and over again and expect, a new result somehow.
Every
they
time.
don't know what, God bless them, I'm sure they're nice people and stuff, but they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right, and sometimes they're given a book or whatever to try to read some things.
Yep.
A lot of times they're from a different state. And so what I've been doing is going around Georgia saying, you've heard me say we need poll watchers everywhere. We need poll workers everywhere. Now I'm telling you we need attorneys everywhere. I want each county to have an attorney that's ready on standby, because as an attorney myself, I've been part of this in the past where we'll sit down at our Republican headquarters and wait for a call to come in. Mm-hmm. That model needs to go away because it doesn't work. Because then they're like, oh, we need to find somebody now, and they're not there.
They're not there.
Especially in South Georgia, North Georgia, Metro Atlanta, it's easier, but we need people to be empowered. And that's what, the great thing about what's going on here is that's what you all are doing. You're filling the gap, because TPUSA is actually educating people, empowering the grassroots, what the Republican Party should be doing.
Well, and that's really kind of you to say. I always tell people everywhere I go, because they know obviously with Turning Point and everything else and our involvement, but there needs to be 50 more of these, right? The left, this is what the left has. This is the scary part. This is truly the scary part. The research that we've done has shown there are literally, obviously we do a lot here at Turning Point, but there's 50 grassroots organizations that exist in Wisconsin and Michigan and Georgia and Arizona that they stand up to help offset the dysfunction of the party, because it's not unique to the Republican Party. The Democrat Party is dysfunctional too.
It is.
It's the parties, right? You can't expect to have the parties do all of the work year in and year out when it's brand new. You whitewash,
Here's
leadership
the
turnovers. There's leadership turnovers. There's staffing turnovers. Then there's financial differences between each chairman.
Yep.
So it never stays the same. And so the left figured out to get the C4s. Sorry, Republican Party of Georgia, we're going to take over, or Democrat Party of Georgia, we're going to take over voter registration. And look at the state of Georgia now.
And the thing of it is, that the difference is the Democrats smart enough to embrace it.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Republicans, you're getting pushback like, how dare you intrude on our turf?
Help.
Right?
Yeah.
How dare you help
America?
How dare you help
organize?
organize?
Committeeman. How
Right.
dare you?
Well,
How dare you want to chase balance? And how dare you want to educate people about how to become a delegate and about the Constitution?
And that's
grief.
this was so mind-boggling, just because I know I'm pretty conservative, right? Like I know that, but here's what the left does really well in embracing, because you bring up a really great point. The left embraces their most radical, their most liberal people, because they know, again, that's the base that helps turn out people, right? They learned this during the Obama years. This is written in the books that J. Christian Adams has done this research. This is in the blueprint, the Colorado blueprint, if you read it. The Obama years showed that moving left has a lot of benefit, because then when you chase ballots of low propensity votes of people who don't normally vote, then you have something to talk about on single issues or peer pressure around a candidate that they like. You have lots of things to choose from. And on our side, I think what the standard that's been set is, competition. We don't need help. We need to move to the middle. And so conservatives aren't helpful.
In that point, we don't believe in anything.
And it's the backwards way of looking at, it's the opposite way that Democrats have been winning elections for the past almost 20 years now. And so, it's frustrating for sure. And I think that you're right. We should be embracing outside groups. We should be embracing anyone that registers more voters, drives more votes. And I think that's part of the Trump mantra a little bit.
Well, speaking of Georgia, something that is very positive is what Kelly Loeffler's been doing for
right.
the senator.
She's been crushing it with the right mentality since her election.
And I've told her this time and time again how proud I was of her. She could have just said, you know what, I'm walking
took her ball
away.
and went home.
Have a nice,
She's independently wealthy.
Billionaire, right?
Yeah, she doesn't have any reason.
But she didn't. She stuck around, and thank God she's doing it.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of an outside group that has a lot to give. And again, is the RNC embracing Kelly's group?
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen it. She's never. I could be. Maybe I missed it. I've never seen her celebrated at one of our RNC meetings and bringing her in and listening session to what she's doing. I think that would be useful. In fact, we should maybe think about that in Vegas. We should invite her down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And her group is actually called Greater Georgia.
Yep, Greater Georgia. That's right.
Yeah, and she's doing a great job with it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but we got a new chairman, Josh McCoon. He's drinking from a fire hose. He's got a lot going on. Great guy. You've met him.
He was here.
Yeah, he was here. So things are going in the right direction. We just there's a lot of things that we have to work on in Georgia. Unfortunately, we've got, some legal trouble because of the electors, which I said I didn't really want to talk about, but so it makes it harder to raise some money.
Oh.
But
it's part of the targeting that they're doing in these key target states.
The thing of it is, Josh is still raising money.
Yeah.
And he's a good conservative. He's been ranked like when he was in the state Senate, most conservative senator. So known him a long time.
Good.
We used to go around the state with my wife, Debbie Dooley, and some others, like we're apostles, as Tea Party patriots back in the day.
That's the move.
So we've been at this for a long time, and we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's been ugly for a while, and the Republican Party keeps wanting to do the same thing over and over again.
Well, and this is the thing too. So, this has been the biggest challenge that I've seen personally, is that we've had some people that have been involved since the Tea Party era, like yourself, Jason, they've seen a lot, right? We've seen a lot, almost a full revolution within the Republican Party. And there's some institutional knowledge that's important, because, and this is really critical for people to hear. We have a lot of new people, and they're really frustrated because they just came in somewhere between 2016 and 2020. And they go, I like Trump a lot. I got involved, maybe voted for the first time for Trump, for a Republican because of Trump. And I'm getting involved now with the Republican Party, and I'm realizing that it's a really dysfunctional organization, right? And this is important for, I think, people to understand, and I want to get your take on this. what to do moving forward is people see that and they kind of throw their hands up and they go, oh my gosh, we need to walk away from the party. We need to get away
Start
from
our own
parties.
party, yeah.
I'm going to vote for Trump, but I'm not going to help. Talk to me a little bit about what do you think is the pathway forward to add credibility? Add credibility back to the Republican Party, because Trump has always been a really great, supporter of the party since he ran and gets the banner, because that's how you have to become president, basically. But what do we need to do in order to make it a better place so people feel a little bit more invited and a little bit more in line with, kind of away from that real negativity that exists around the party?
Well, the most important thing in politics, obviously, is showing up. All right.
Yeah.
So, if you can show up to your precinct caucus and get involved and become a precinct chair, that's probably the most important position there is.
Yes.
Because we're supposed to be a bottom-up organization, not a top-down organization, a bottom-up. So if the precinct committee chair does their job, we'll win everything all the time. If they're actually doing their job and get recruiting people within their neighborhoods and their precinct, we'll win. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's not this top-down stuff.
Right.
And so my message to people that are new is to don't walk away, get involved, vote, get involved in the party, become a precinct chair, become a delegate. I sat in and talked to people about how to become a delegate in a breakout session the other day. And if you're a young person, even more important, please get involved, bring your friends. The more people you get, here's how it works for conventions. The more people you have at the convention, the better chance there are that your group's going to win. And I've seen it time and time again. You can flood conventions with people and just take things over. And especially, you can have slates of people, especially if you're rooting for a specific candidate, and go do it and take over. That's what you need to do.
Part of it too is most folks, they get upset with the party because the party just has a bad image, and I don't want to have anything to do with the party. I want to be involved. And it's well, you're not actually in the Republican Party unless you're a precinct delegate, unless you're a precinct chair, because you've got no skin in the game. You're upset with the direction. You got to be a precinct chair, and so that's what we do every day at Turning Point Action. Is in the target states, recruiting precinct chairs, recruiting precinct committeemen, because we also have to build that bench. We really don't have a bench. You don't want to have to be RNC National Committeeman for someday, and I wouldn't want anybody to be RNC Committeeman for
I pushed for term limits. I'd never be National Committeeman if I didn't push for term limits. I don't know, it was 10, 12 years ago. And
so we have to build that bench. We have to have a bench of good people to go represent on the RNC, or it's the same person for the last 3, 4, 5 presidential administrations, and then they wonder what has never changed. Because you keep sending the same person back, so you need to start here at the grassroots level, be a precinct chair.
That's exactly it. And one of the things too is that the difference is, I see there's different, Gov sucks, stuff like that. Your messaging here is great. We get killed on messaging as a party. And my wife always gives this example. So who did we roll out to talk about women's rights when they're this is going back a ways, but when they're talking about abortion and women's rights and stuff like that? Guess who they put forward for that? Karl Rove.
It's crazy.
What in the hell?
He's so far out there, and it's so funny because I follow a couple other guys that are known as marketing geniuses, and it's these are the people who put up people who lost very big and have no fundamental understanding of the base at this point, and it's we're going to keep losing if that's the case. And I think that's what actually ticks off a lot of these new people that want to get involved. You're exactly right. You have to get involved. You have to stick with it. And I always tell people all the time this is forget, you got to put blinders on and ignore some of the old stuff, because you're always going to see that. But it's like anything in life. You're not going to get involved and immediately just get it, right? Politics is kind of, it's not a fun thing all the time, but it's not, and it really shouldn't be a hobby. It should be just part of your life. And it's not fun, just like I think going to church isn't all the time fun, right? There's always things like that, but it's just something you have to do. Not as important as church, but you have to do it. And it takes some practice, and it takes some commitment, and it takes all those things, right? And so just the expectation that you're going to show up and love what you're doing here, and that you're not going to have challenges, and that you're going to learn to ride the bike by jumping on the bike for the first time, is kind of an irrational expectation.
And one of the things I talked about during that breakout session was if you're new, and especially if you're a young person, start building your political resume.
Right.
All right. Because when you go to these things, they have nominating committees at the conventions, and a lot of times these delegate spots for national delegate and alternate are kind of almost like lifetime achievement awards or something for people, right? And so some of the same people get it over and over again because they're used to the process and they've been around a long time. Start building your political resume, so at least have some things there, so when you go in, you can say, I worked on this campaign, I did this, I went to the TPUSA conference, stuff like that. So it's not just, hey, I'm here and I want to be a delegate, all right? Start building that political resume, get involved, and help out. And if it's not for the Republican Party, join, your TPUSA chapter if you're a college student, something like that, or YAF or whatever. Get involved so you build that political resume when it's time to run for either political office or whatever, you've got those credentials to do so.
Absolutely. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter it's @GJasonThompson.
Well, Jason, we're incredibly grateful for your work, and again, I can't reiterate enough, there were only a handful of patriots that were dedicated to listening to the grassroots this last year, and you were one of the few on the RNC. And so the work that I know you're doing, the commitment that you've made to the grassroots has been really astounding. It's really a great sight to see, and we're incredibly grateful for your commitment. We need more like you.
Absolutely.
On the Republican National Committee, and I'm certain that we're going to have a lot more like you show up, and we're going to be part of that this next year, and so I'm excited for that. So I hope. Are you running for re-election?
I am. Yeah.
Great. And I know Turning Point Action is going to be based off of that vivid history that we had this last year, that we're going to be fully behind you. So anything that you need from us and those that are listening, get in contact with them on Twitter. What's your email that people can reach out to you to?
It's jason@jasonthompson.gop.
Oh, that's easy. jason@jasonthompson.gop. Thank you so much for your commitment to the cause.
Thanks,
we
man.
appreciate you being on. And
thanks for loving the grassroots.
Enjoy the rest of America Fest.
Thanks.
We've got loud Steve Bannon in the background, and we've got the Hammer joining us from Delaware.
Yep.
Chairwoman Murray, that is the chairwoman of the Delaware Republican Party. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me here, and yes, it is loud.
It's very loud, but it's good to have that WWE presence in the background when we're talking about body slamming the left.
You gotta love it.
So, we serve together on the Republican National Committee.
We do.
You're the chairwoman of.
I am the state
chair.
The
first state.
I am indeed.
I am the national committeeman from the last of the lower 48. So the last
48.
Of the states that we count. We're contiguous states. We're happy to have you back in Arizona. You kind of grew up here.
I did. I went to high school, Chaparral High School, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Where we have one of the largest Turning Point USA chapters in the country.
It does not surprise me. I mean, even in the 80s, yes, I'm dating myself here, even in the 80s, that conservative school. So I'm really glad to hear that. And then I've already offended Austin here by saying I went to University of Arizona.
Yeah, well, you offended us both, but it's fine. No, I'm just teasing. I went to ASU.
Okay, so you're going to love this. It was free. Okay, you know where it's, okay. It was free.
We'll take that.
Hey, it's a land-grant university. We appreciate it. We always joke about giving away U of A to Mexico in exchange for Rocky Point. So
have our own port.
We would do that in a heartbeat. We actually just talked about it on the episode last week. So for
oceanfront property in Arizona would be a real thing.
I'm all there.
So we're grateful for you. A lot of people don't know this, but this is Swing State Update. We talk a lot about the swing states, but there's a lot of news happening. We're here at America Fest. We've talked about this on the episode, but we want to talk about Delaware for a couple of different reasons.
Okay.
One, you came into the RNC defeating one of Ronna McDaniel's best friends that was on the committee, who was the former chair of the Delaware Republican Party.
True.
And she also was the former AG.
She was.
Of the Delaware, or of the state of Delaware.
Yep.
And was somewhat cozy with the Bidens. We won't get into that. probably too rosy.
TikTok, don't have enough time.
Yeah, don't have enough time. But let's talk about you and like your role. You know, obviously conservatives were like having no more of that, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people feel like that across the country because, I mean, we've heard from stage here, you know, obviously the direction of the RNC hasn't been great.
Correct.
We've said that as poignantly as we can and as nice as we can when we go there. You know, you had some of that same feeling in Delaware. What are the things you're doing in Delaware? And then let's talk about Biden mania going on and your involvement and how you've been, you know, executing the hammer.
And why the heck I'm called the Hammer.
Why you're called the Hammer by Steve Bannon, who's sitting right here across from us.
And in fact, I made sure to stop by, and he's like, Hammer! All right, so I actually ran for, I am the definition of grassroots. And in 2020, out of nowhere, first-time candidate, ran for governor of Delaware.
Wow.
Won a six-way primary and ended up with more votes than anybody in the history of Delaware as a Republican. Who lost? 2020, vote by mail. Yeah, and you know, was very involved in election integrity. 22 ran for AG. I'm a practicing attorney. Seemed like a good fit. I'm running for AG. They statutorily pass vote by mail. They basically, even though it's constitutional based, they statutorily passed it. I challenged it as a candidate. And won. You know, we had it defeated. Basically, trial court went to the the Delaware Supreme Court a month before the election, and they found it unconstitutional. So I go on with Bannon the next day. I had been on with Jim Hoft of Gateway Pundit, go on with Bannon, and he says, you know, we're starting to talk, and he said, so you're a candidate and you did this? And I said, yeah, and I go, but whoever, President Trump in 24 can send me a Christmas card. And he said, why? And I said, because there's no vote by mail in 24. They can't amend the Constitution in time. So Delaware has no vote by mail.
That's such a beautiful thing.
Huge. I mean, we still have absentee voting, but it's constant, you know, it's excuse-based. So he, you know, in the we go off camera, and he looks and he says, "Did you hear her? She's a hammer, and she's in Biden's home state." Yep. So fast forward, I lost because Republicans didn't show up, and I said, "All right." We put together a team. We strategized. We irritated everybody.
How much did you lose by?
I lost by 12,225 votes.
That's
that
nothing.
Is so close.
Yeah,
that's not
46.2%.
We talk about this. This is nothing.
46.2% in blue Delaware as a Republican. Yeah.
And not just not a moderate. Conservative.
Yeah, a known conservative. You know, a known conservative. So we really put together a team. We figured out, you know, it's very similar, you know, to precinct strategy. We worked our delegates. We put change delegates in place. Yep. And I announced 6 weeks before I won by, it was like 180 something to 150 something. And it was groundbreaking in Delaware. People were, you know, just did not think I was going to win. And so I'm grassroots. We have formed task forces. We have great energy going on in Delaware. We've got people who are, you know, election integrity and data and doing all of this stuff. So I'm trying to build the party, trying to build this ground, and Heritage Foundation reaches out to me and says, hey, will you help us in the Hunter Biden case?
Wow.
Yeah, so I filed a brief right before Hunter's criminal plea, and I'm sitting in the courtroom, you know, on Hunter's plea, and the judge is asking questions about does she have the authority, and you know the team's saying no, she doesn't have authority. And she goes, well, I've got this brief with 900 pages of exhibits that say I have the authority, and I'm sitting in the back row going. So happy to be here. Yeah. That would be me.
That's me.
You know, and you know, I had talked to the marshals and the clerk.
Straight from Delaware.
Yeah. So it was plea blows up.
So funny.
You know, I walk out of the courthouse with this smile on my face, and Fox News picks up, you know, and it says Hunter Biden's plea blows up, and then my phone blows up. So, Newsmax has had me on quite a bit. So, you know, if Hunter, if it's going on with Hunter, we have filed another suit under FOIA about Hunter Biden, about David Weiss, and about what's called the Mann Act, having to do with the prostitutions and interstate, you know, human trafficking and all of this stuff. And I mean, I'm just going to keep hammering.
So
that's awesome.
So take us through on that. You know, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen from here on the Hunter front? Okay. So I mean, if you're allowed, I don't know if you are comfortable.
I'm not. I mean, I am
oversharing here, but you know, what is the next step? Where do you think things are going to go? Kind of give us a heads up here, and then how do you think that's going to impact the election?
Okay, so right now, two different fronts going on. Obviously, there are gun charges in Delaware. And there
which are very serious.
They are,
Yeah.
and there are tax charges in California. So the gun charges,
which they're going to totally just get him out of, you think, or?
Well, I mean, probably. I mean that I mean, in terms of.
But the gun thing, it's hard for Democrats to wiggle out.
It's a bigger, because even though, and it's so funny because his lawyer, Abby Lowell, who I made sure I introduced myself to, and he couldn't get out of saying hello to me. It was awesome.
Awkward.
It was awesome.
So terrible.
And it was straight
I
up.
love that. That is Hammer like
It was straight
material.
up
Okay.
kinesiology because he was sitting and I was standing, and it was just so
it's like
great.
the bending.
Yeah, that was so great.
Yeah, it's so fun.
He was whining last week about this is political prosecution, and this would never
You broke
happen.
the law.
And the other thing is you are upset about exactly what you've been doing to President Trump. So quit your whining.
I know.
The gun charges, there was a case, or there in the, I think it's the Fifth Circuit, about the constitutionality of some of these, whether or not if you are an addict, can you be a person, can that be an issue? When they re-indicted him, they added other charges that are much harder for him to get around. One of them has to do with the false statement.
Right.
So that is, you freaking lied.
You're a liar, yeah.
You lied, okay? And the other has to do with, it's not the gun purchase, it's that being a person prohibited.
Sure.
You are an addict, which is a different arm of this. So both of those are a big deal for him. And then, the tax charges, even though I would love to think they're going to, I think they could go away, they're going to have a hard time justifying that.
Yeah.
Because if you read the indictment, the information that is there, so granular about what he spent his money on. And it's like, granted, we are innocent until proven guilty, and indictments are meant to paint a bad picture.
Yep.
But this was, oh my gosh.
So much stuff.
Much stuff.
And the involvement with the rest of his family, right? And
So-
how that intersects is, I think, part of the reason why they're going to try to bury that as far as they can, and
so how
lock
it
him away
impacts
forever.
the election now is
Let's hear about it.
I think that those charges are out there. Okay, I think that part of what has been going on here with that is about leverage with Biden.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So and one of the questions in the straw poll is do you think Biden's going to be at the top of the ticket? No, I don't. I don't think he's going to be, but they're going to wait until, the very last possible minute that they can do that. And, because it's just it's safer for them to do that.
Well, and they can use all of this as part of the example. I think that that's what's going to happen, is that this is all going to drop. If Biden were to remain the candidate with all this dropping, I think it's going to time out perfectly here.
Yeah.
But that's part of the reason, to your point, that part of their strategy is to get him out late too.
Correct. Because they don't want us to know who that candidate's going to be. Have everything focused on Biden and Trump.
Right.
But I think that
and then it becomes the relief candidate, right? Where people are like, oh, that's the strategy that a lot of people have talked about, is like that. Oh, that. I can vote for this other person because I feel better about them because they haven't been embroiled in this Trump, Biden saga.
Now, people are like, he needs to go to jail. Do I think Hunter's going to jail? I don't. Even if he were convicted, I don't think
he's going to get.
Yeah, first of all, there's no minimum mandatories associated with any of it. And, and it is just, but the press conference that he did, please tell, did you watch that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Vomit-inducing press conference.
So sick.
It was, and I went on Newsmax right after. I was on with Carl Higbee, and I was like, excuse me, I just want to vomit right now.
Yeah,
but it's the pity party of I've had such a terrible life.
Yeah, taking no responsibility.
And those MAGA Republicans and all of this stuff, which is just baloney. So I think that it's a sideshow.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, there are a lot of people, Heritage Foundation being one of them, that are just dog with a bone and are coming in under Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
So the complaint that we just filed has to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chairman Comer. Both are looking for information because there's a crime. Was it investigated that that prostitutes were went across state lines, were paid for it? There's something called the Mann Act out there. Was it discussed? Yes. We have IRS whistleblowers that are saying it was discussed. Why aren't you prosecuting it? So they didn't get an answer, so we're coming in under Freedom of Information. It's called Freedom of Information. Now, are they going to stonewall and say, ongoing investigation, all that stuff? Probably. Sorry, headset just headset just went that way. But it is, and I am a moving target. I move all the time. It drives people insane.
I'm the same way.
Exactly. So, so the Hunter thing is going to stick. It's going to be an issue, and I think it's going to be the issue that's going to push Biden out of the race.
Well,
not
not
because he's a caring dad.
Right.
Someone was
It's just so damning.
Yeah.
It's just all so damning.
Well, his excuse is going to be, I need to go
Right.
take care of my family, but it all has to do with, and I think it's a squeeze play. Biden does not want to give up.
Sure.
I think this is his own party basically saying, if you're not going to give up, then we're going to give you several years worth of reasons to think about why you should probably reconsider that.
Right.
Go retire. So I think that
Just get out of the way.
I think all of that's in play. But
so dirty, and really how that overlays then with this scenario here is that you have now a situation where we have to worry about as Republicans, who are they going to plug in, who's going to be last minute.
Yep.
I think the question then is, where do we go from here? Like, is there a way to keep Biden in the race? Do we want to do that? How does this situation overlay with that?
I think that, as a chairperson of the Republican, state chair, I would rather have Biden in the race.
Yeah.
Because I think that he's an easier target.
Yeah.
Whoever the popular person is that they plug in there, the relief factor, the Democrats go, oh, thank God, okay, so I can now vote for that person.
Right.
Whereas with Biden and some of the stuff that's going on, and particularly with independents who are conflicted right now. Arizona's very purple, obviously.
Right.
Independents that are conflicted about, oh gosh, crime here, crime there. Who am I supposed to vote for?
I don't know the rules of the DNC. This has been the big question, right? Because let's talk about the RNC real quick.
Okay,
if we did this, right? Let's talk about what would happen. So the rules of the RNC, I'm pretty sure if something happened to our candidate, our delegates would have to reconvene and nominate someone else. Is that?
I think you're right. He's been doing
as
this
in the
longer.
168.
No, I don't.
The 168 would have to reconvene.
I don't, and I could
right?
be. I don't have the rules in front of me, so I could be totally wrong
and
about
you don't
that.
know them by heart?
Yeah, I don't know them by heart. I don't know the bylaws. But I do. But I do believe that our people, and just forget about it. Like let's imagine somebody was in there, and let's just say Trump, for whatever reason, decided not to run after being nominated, and then like Nikki Haley was the nominee. Our people would lose their minds, right?
Yep,
and
absolutely.
they would want to definitely get back together and actually nominate somebody, right?
I would agree. Yep.
So I guess my question is, if they do try to do this plan, could it go totally sideways where the party is going to have conflict over who that replacement person should be? And do we think it's just automatically Gavin Newsom because the posturing, or are there other people who may step up and say, wait a minute? And then my second question for you, I'm really interested because I haven't heard maybe talk about it. Why did RFK then pull out and run as an independent if all this was possible? Because he would have probably had a really good shot then at being the nominee if Biden did step down amongst the delegates and superdelegates.
And there's a lot of people. RFK is an interesting guy. In terms of, I've talked to lots of people who are like, okay, he's an interesting guy. All right, so in terms of the Democrat rules, from what I understand, they have superdelegates. Like they've created all
That's
of this.
how Hillary won.
No doubt. So they have a mechanism in place that if they chose to at convention, they can pick who they want. Where the conflict is going to be is Kamala Harris versus Newsom. Is she the quote unquote heir apparent because she's the vice president? She has fans. And then is Gavin Newsom? Which one of them's more electable? And even though Gavin Newsom said, I'm not doing this, and in his debate with Ron, he could absolutely flip on that and say, oh, but I was told, I was begged to do it. Yeah. I have to do this. So
and that's just what's so annoying too. Yeah. I'm annoyed. I haven't heard many people talk about this, but I'm annoyed that Ron, the Governor DeSantis, is platforming Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
I actually think that's stupid.
I would agree with you.
You don't have to agree with it. I just think it's kind of stupid. Like, we shouldn't be giving any airtime to Gavin Newsom right now.
Well, but Ron DeSantis is desperate. I mean, come on. I mean, he is absolutely. He has to do something,
Right.
and the match with Gavin Newsom.
Right.
My concern about Gavin Newsom is reasonable people can look at California and say,
Oh my gosh.
Why would we do this?
Why would we? Yeah.
But the problem is, I mean, we are a video era.
Sure.
Okay? Gavin, Mr. Breck or whatever, his fantastic Lambuki hair,
Yeah.
and is just looks the same, has that certain look.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and I mean I believe both of you can vouch for the fact we have something called low information voters in this country.
Yep.
Who
Oh,
will
yeah.
vote, who just, if there's a D next to it, they're voting. Thankfully, if there's an R next to it, they vote. But, the Gavin Newsom concerns me if he's actually, because I do
Right.
think that there are people that would be attracted to that.
Yeah, I think he definitely would play pretty competitive here in Arizona just because there's Westerners and we have liberals that did come from California that
Sure.
are here.
Sure.
I think it might be a little bit harder for him, obviously, in the South, like in Georgia, but I'm sure he could tailor his message in the Midwest and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Yes.
Probably.
Well, we know that's all it takes, right?
And and those are the only places they have to go get the votes anyway.
Which
they
is
have to go
awful.
chase ballots. It doesn't matter who the candidate
Yeah,
is. They
yeah.
they can plug in almost anybody. So
And I mean, so as awful as it is, I find myself going, go Biden.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, yeah, it's like it plays into the strategy, right? Of
It
like
does.
how do you
yeah.
ensure? So, well, this has been so educational and it's always so entertaining. How can we support you in Delaware and the great patriots who are taking back the Republican Party in states like yours? How can we support you?
All right, so we, thank you for that. My personal handle is Murray4DE, but DelawareGOP.com is where you find out information about us. And
Very cool.
we started a monthly recurring donor program, $5 a month. Quit having one Glambuki coffee a month, and
Yeah.
I've said Glambuki a couple times.
Yeah, yes, you have.
It's a fun.
You've got it in.
It's like shenanigans. It's like shenanigans.
That was the word of the day.
Yeah, there you go. But
Just put it across the screen.
the very coolest thing is, for those, and you're talking about, grassroots are alive.
Mm-hmm.
Grassroots, and grassroots are the key to the 2024 election. We have to energize them, all of them,
Wow.
and it's working.
Well, and I'll tell you this, and this is just a reminder to people, and this is a great reminder that not every one of us that's on the RNC is bad.
Correct.
And there are many good conservatives that we need to support at the local level, at the state level. Delaware is much smaller than the county I live in here, right? So, it takes a lot to operate the GOP. We need to win.
Yep.
We're getting close. You're a great example of we're so close to winning. And if we chase the ballots, we identify the voters, and we work hard, and we support great grassroots conservatives, we can win back places. And if we force the Democrats to have to fight in Delaware,
yeah.
then we're going to win in other places. And that's why we've got to support you. And
I
so
appreciate
God
that.
bless you
I
for
appreciate it.
the work that you're doing and strategic work that you're doing to help revive the conservative movement in Delaware.
Yep, I love it. Thank you for the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that it is. It's all we're all working together.
Wow.
That's and I love it. We did a breakout yesterday, and people just saw RNC, and it was like, no, come in.
Come
Don't
talk.
make an assumption. Don't make an assumption. There's a lot of us that are really working this.
Yeah.
So,
Working hard for the movement.
You
And
bet.
that is the story of Chairwoman Murray in Delaware, and so we're grateful to you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
again for joining us. This
Thanks.
is State Update.
Very much good. Thanks, guys. Very
Talk
much
to you soon.
appreciate it. All right, thanks.